You know, I don't think we have ever been more uncertain about the next generation of consoles, about the future of video games as we are right now. With the ever-increasing prices of hardware, potentially over $1,000 consoles, and with physical games and ownership hanging by a thread after being shot multiple times by Sony, it is understandable to think that the future looks pretty bleak. That, and it seems that the next generation of consoles is pretty close by. All the rumors points out to a late 2027 release. So I thought it could be interesting to look into the future, to see how potentially the next generation could be, how the future of gaming can look like 1, 2, 3 years from now. And it could be even fun. You know, your future selves can come back to this video in a couple of years and tell me how much of an idiot I am. So we're going to go over the big players in the hardware space and a bit of a general look what the industry could be in the near future. So let's get into it. Okay, we're going to start with potentially the shortest and the weirdest one, which is the big N. Why is the weirdest one? Well, because Nintendo, it's probably the most difficult of these companies to predict. What are they going to do in the future? It's anybody's guess, because they have a knack for subverting expectations. Many times in a good way, but sometimes not. So, what is the future for Nintendo? And as a bit of a tangent from here, I just find hilarious when they release the Switch 2. A lot of people complain, oh, it's too expensive, it's not as powerful as a PS5, $500 is too much. Also, we had the $80 Mario Kart World, which was Nintendo trying to lift the price of games to $80. Also, we had the game keycards, which was Nintendo trying to, take a little step towards less ownership, less physical media. And now, in July 2026, a Switch 2 is pretty much the best deal you can have right now. Despite being increased in price from its original release price, the Switch 2 not only proved to be a fantastic console, but because the jump in graphics hasn't been that insane, the Switch can handle pretty demanding games with a bit of tweaking, and yes, they don't look maybe as good as a PS5 Pro, but it does a very good job. Now, it's the cheapest console you can buy, and despite the fact that the game keycards are not physical games, and they're better than just, all digital. At least you can sell them. Man, this is an awful timeline. So, Nintendo. It's difficult to pinpoint because first, Nintendo always goes sideways compared to the other two. So, we're not going to see a next generation console from Nintendo, I would guess minimum 4 years, if not more. And your guess is as good as mine. The Switch 2, I always believed that they were just going to make a Switch more powerful. That's it. However, they already made two consoles that are pretty much the same. Nintendo is that, that fidgety guy that it just sits there and can't stay still. He's biting its nails and everything. He needs to do something. So ideally, for me, I would prefer if they just make a Switch 3. Because the concept of the Switch was so good when it first came out. In fact, it sparked a whole genre of hardware, with handheld PCs. Sure, Valve helped with the Steam Deck, and the Steam Deck was most likely already in development when the Switch came out, so I find it as a coincidence, honestly. But the Switch popularized it. The Switch was such a popular console that when the Steam Deck came out, it looked a lot better than maybe if no one had tried that before, and Valve was the first. It would have been maybe a little bit more apprehensive. So the concept was so good, finally nailing that hybrid console, that it was a no-brainer for a Switch 2. And in my opinion, it's a no-brainer for a Switch 3. But again, the world of video games changes a lot every year. So looking 4 or 5 years in the future, who knows? Maybe there will be a new revolutionary concept that Nintendo wants to do. Or as they do sometimes, maybe they release something thinking that it's going to be big and it isn't. Or it's poorly marketed, like the Wii U. So Nintendo is difficult. In terms of games, I think they're going to keep pushing for higher prices because, well, we've seen that, of course, the next Fire Emblem, Fortune's Weave, that comes in September 17th, that is $80. That is $80. And honestly, that particular example, I'm not sure if a Fire Emblem is huge, but it's not as big as Mario Kart. I think they're just going to keep pushing their main titles to 80, and that's going to be them for the foreseeable future. At least for now, we don't know. They could come out next week and do the Sony thing, which honestly, I don't think. Nintendo does its own thing. So honestly, anyone that is looking at Sony and the backlash they're getting after their announcement that it's still going strong, even if they're thinking, even if that's their plan, they're not going to say a word for now. And Sony is honestly hoping that any of the other two say something so incredibly anti-consumer that people will kind of shift their hate. I don't know. In terms of what I would want, a Switch 3. I think the Switch is just fantastic. So a Switch 3 would be pretty good. Okay, let's go to the big two. And we're going to start with Xbox. Now, to say that Xbox is in deep shit would be a massive understatement. They recently had 1,600 layoffs. They are selling studios. They are cutting studios loose. They're shutting down studios. And it seems to be a big focus into their bigger IPs. In fact, they have set Obsidian to make a new Fallout game. Honestly, there is some excitement because the director of Fallout New Vegas, Josh Sawyer, it's leading the project. So now, how Xbox has been handling all the situation, the layoffs and everything, it's not logical if what you want is your bigger IP, your biggest IPs to make new games that sell a lot. Because first and foremost, a lot of people are going to buy them out of loyalty, but they need to be good. If the games are not good, at a baseline, they need to be good. They don't need to be generational masterpieces, although you could argue that Xbox kind of need one of those or a few of those at this point, but they need to be good. However, you need to keep in mind, Xbox has been firing a lot of people, and among them, some people that have been in these companies for decades. They're letting go generational knowledge, institutional knowledge that they are going to need. Someone that is certainly not happy about this is Todd Howard, because he just lost control of his baby. To some extent, I think it's deserved, because when did Fallout 4 came out? 2015. I played that on release, but for some reason I thought it was 2018. Jesus Christ. Oh yeah, right. The November was the anniversary edition, 10 years. Jesus Christ. And they broke the game. So Xbox is in deep shit. They seem to be focusing on bigger IPs. I mentioned this in my other video. You can go watch it right now about Xbox layoffs. But they seem to be a lot of movement around people related to Minecraft. In fact, the former director of Mojang has been promoted. And I still can't shake that feeling, and I mentioned it in that video, that Xbox is planning something big with Minecraft, like, you know, Roblox style. I don't know. I'm just pulling that out of my ass, but it's like I can't shake that feeling. So what does the future look like for Xbox? Well, in the near future, they're going to get more layoffs. They're already in the pipeline. More studios are going to be shut down or spinned away. And they're going to focus their bigger studios into projects that at least could get sales. Now, this could work if they can get the budgets in line. Because if they put Bethesda Game Studios, okay, you're going to focus 100% on Elder Scrolls 6. And they give them $400 million plus everything they have already spent. I don't think that's going to work. Listen, there is a lot of hype for new Elder Scrolls games after so long since Skyrim. But after Starfield, it would sell millions very quickly. But if it's not a good game, and on top of that, it has an insane budget, it's not going to be profitable. So the near future is not bright. If Microsoft decides to cut funding, cut their losses, okay, this is not working out, and abandons Xbox, there is nothing you can do. I think they're going to get enough leeway towards the next generation, and depending how that starts, or how that is received, how much money does it make in general, that's going to be like this deciding if, okay, we're just going to sell everything, or maybe we can keep putting more money. And talking about that, Project Helix, the next generation console, the talk around it has changed because it seems like Xbox is thinking into a more affordable experience. And make no mistake, affordable doesn't mean cheap. It only means it will be more affordable than the competition. That would be the goal. With the increasing hardware prices, which, I mean, I don't need to tell you that they are pretty insane, what are they going to do? This is assuming the prices don't change, because we've seen a lot of rumors that they're not coming down anytime soon. So this is assuming that at least the first few batches of new generation consoles will be made with extremely expensive hardware. So I think that it makes more sense trying to make a console, making it that is more affordable. And no joke, because they have always mentioned it that this is going to be like a hybrid. That yes, it can play Xbox games as a typical Xbox console, but it will also have like a PC mode that can play PC games. I think they're looking at the Steam machine. You see, the Switch proved that you don't need the most insane powerful console to run most games, even if they look slightly worse. I've said this before. If we get PS4 graphics for 10 years, I will be fine. And don't get me wrong, I love good graphics. I love nice graphics. In fact, I gushed over Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced and how good it looks. But as technology keeps advancing, if the studios put the effort into optimizing their games, you can have very good looking games run very well. You don't need photorealistic graphics. You don't need a game that is indistinguishable from real life. You don't need that. So I think for Xbox it would be good to try to compete on a different level than the PS5, not that the PS6, not blow by blow, not trying to make a more powerful console, because the Xbox Series X is more powerful than a base PS5. It was the most powerful console until the PS5 Pro came out. That didn't help it. If they can offer something that is cheaper, how much goodwill has Sony burned recently? I don't know how will that reach the next console, but you could have a shot. And on a personal note, in the terms of the physical games talk that we have, I don't blindly buy or follow any company. I judge them by either console by console or game by game basis. For example, Ubisoft does some incredibly shitty stuff. And I don't like Ubisoft as a company. And yet I bought Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Why? Because it's a good game. And the potential deal breakers does not affect the quality of the game. So I can buy it and I can enjoy it. If Xbox comes out, which they won't. Okay, I want to make this clear. They won't. I don't believe for a second that they will. But if they come out with a console and they say, hey, we're supporting physical media, you're going to be able to get full, complete physical games for Project Helix, I'm buying an Xbox. I've never bought an Xbox. I've had PlayStations all my life. Not because I'm a fanboy, it's because, well, I had the previous one, then I got the next one, I could play my old games, it was like that. But if the next PlayStation, it won't be able to play my old physical games, I'm just keeping my PS5, and I would very much consider buying an Xbox. Again, they won't. You need to remember, they were the ones that tried first to kill physical media and introduce insane levels of DRM to their consoles, and they failed miserably because they came 13 years too soon. So I don't believe that they will. But I would buy an Xbox if they support physical media, full physical media. Again, they were also the ones that started with the discs that didn't have the game and it's just a key, and you need to download the entire game. So a man can dream. If they can make their next console affordable, some exciting games, then maybe they can have a chance to, honestly, at this point, to survive through the next generation. And let's go to the third one, PlayStation. I haven't seen a company directly burn so much goodwill so quickly as Sony has done in the last, month? I understand why they went this why they announced it, because they probably thought, hey, we're just gonna announce it now, so it's not a surprise, because they most likely just want their next console to be all digital, don't have to worry about discs, don't have to worry about designing the console with disk drive or an external one, doesn't matter. We're just gonna rip the band-aid and that's it. I understand it. And this is something I didn't mention in my video, but this was always going to happen at some point. But that's not the bigger problem. The bigger problem is that we don't own the digital games. What we need is consumer protection for digital games. So, how does the future look for PlayStation? Well, in the near future, they're going to keep getting destroyed in the comments of every single thing they post. Hopefully that lasts years. They have a bunch of games that are coming out soon. And considering this announcement now, everyone seems to agree that their rumored release for their next generation console, which was end of 2027, is what they're aiming. They want to get this over with now, and when the backlash die down, let some time pass in, and then we announce the next console. And of course, it's already assumed that it's just going to be a fully digital console. So the PlayStation 6. The bigger question here is the price. Again, we're assuming that the prices of hardware are just going to keep rising at a steady flow. They've been doing for almost a year. Because if they're aiming for a late 2027, they need to start production relatively soon. At most early 2027, they need to start production. Being the first generation after post-pandemic, it's also put an asterisk because we know how the companies are, and they think that because something happened once, it will happen again, like the insane demand for PlayStation 5 when it came out in the middle of the pandemic. I think, personally, it's not going to be easy to get. I think they're going to try to make as little consoles as they can at first, in case they can get better deals for hardware later. But how much the console will cost? Well, everyone seems to be throwing the 1,000 number. $1,000. I wouldn't be surprised if it's even higher than that. Now that begs the question, how many people are going to buy it? The problem with the gaming in the near future is that the prices will keep going up. In games, because GTA 6 is going to do that, and make no mistake, other companies will try. Yes, the first ones that try probably won't sell very well. But you know what? If they keep trying, eventually it's going to become the norm. Hopefully I'm wrong on that aspect, but I don't know. That has been the pattern. I think $1,000 console will push a lot more people for PC. Like, the thing is, when the consoles were 500, 400, 300, it was tough trying to get, a PC for that price. And it required a lot of work that normal people are not going to do. They want a console because you buy it, you plug it to your TV, that you play, that's it. But if you're already pushing 1,000, a lot of people are going to make that jump. So, as a recap, Nintendo, I'm not even going to guess. Hopefully it's a Switch 3, but that is coming way later, so it's too much in the future to try to guess how the everything is going to be at that point. In the meantime, to comply with the EU, they're going to make a new model that has replaceable battery. That is good. That is good. There is also rumors of a Switch OLED, a Switch 2 OLED. That's good. Xbox. Xbox is doing some good things, trying to refocus into their bigger franchises, and apparently they're trying to make their next console a little more on the affordable side. Maybe they can get more people that simply can't afford $1,000 or $1,200 console. The real question with Xbox is, assuming they make the right decisions, can they survive until they see a return in all of these changes? That is a big question for Xbox. And for Sony is, do you really want to keep spitting on the face of your customers? One thing I didn't mention in a previous video, and I haven't mentioned, just came out to my head. With a fully digital console, there is a lot of countries that don't have access to PlayStation Network. If they don't expand to more countries, those people are simply won't buy the new console because they can't play. So Sony is most likely begging that the prices drop, at least so they can make some console for less than 1,000. But I think realistically the PS6 will be at minimum 1,000. It will be all digital. It's going to be extremely interesting once they are properly announced and once we know the prices for these consoles. Now, there is one more player, Valve. We recently got the Steam machine, and while I did make a video about it, it's not a good deal. I think it's a fantastic product for the future of gaming. Because it's essentially what Xbox wanted to do with the Project Helix, make it a console PC hybrid. They've always been more closely related to PC, so bridging that gap was actually good for them. But Valve did what they wanted. Console format, ease of use of a console, mostly, but it's a PC. I'm sure that's what Xbox wanted, to release something like the Steam Machine, but better, more powerful, and hopefully cheaper. How does the future look for PC gaming? Well, honestly, for PC gaming, it looks bright. I mean, we gave up on physical games a long time ago, but on PC, you have a lot more safeguards towards your digital games. Maybe not on Steam or the Epic Game Store, but you have GOG, where you can get offline installers. You can even burn them on Blu-rays or in external drives. You can put them in there, you can install them, you can play them completely offline, they're yours. And with the Steam Machine, now we get a real nice step away from Windows. Because the most important thing that came out with the Steam Machine is not the machine itself, it's SteamOS. Valve needs to keep developing SteamOS as much as they can and make it better and better. Because that way we would have an actual alternative to Windows. Then you can think, okay, but there's Linux. Linux is a mess. Gaming on Linux, what it has come a long way. And it's orders of magnitude better than it was nearly 5 years ago. It's still a pain. And normal people are not going to install Linux and go over the hoops to play on Linux. I'm talking about normal people, casual gamers. SteamOS is something that appeals to them. The ease of use and the compatibility with Steam games. We already seen pre-built PCs that are being offered with SteamOS installed. My idea for PC gaming is because the others, Epic Game Store and GOG, they're going to keep doing their thing. But Valve, that is a hardware company, they're going to keep developing SteamOS and the potential new Steam Machine. So by the time they can get better hardware cheaper, they're going to want to make a Steam Machine too. With all the improvements they have made to SteamOS in the time that takes to make it, at a cheaper price, or at the very minimum, if it's the same price, a lot more powerful. So yeah, that is a brief look into the future, how each of these companies are potentially going to be doing. It's all very uncertain. It's fun to theorize what things could happen, but honestly, it's very difficult because you don't know. For Sony, it's pretty much for sure what they're trying to do, what they're going to be doing. Xbox is more difficult because they have shifted priorities massively. And Nintendo is Nintendo. So you never know. But one thing is certain, if prices keep going up, and apparently they will, either some of these companies massively misjudge their position. Because at this moment, Sony is making some terrible decisions. Xbox could take advantage of them. Remember, Sony won the PS4 generation because Xbox shot themselves on both foot and their chest. Who knows? Sony has been climbing too much. Their ivory tower is becoming too tall. They're losing sight of the ground. Maybe they misjudge and they fall. And all Xbox has to do is, well, don't be stupid for once. And there is one thing I was mumbling about the other day. I was thinking the other day. Xbox came out of nowhere. I mean, sure, not out of nowhere, but came out a bit later than the PS2 and the Nintendo GameCube. But it was a new contender. At that point, it was Sony and Nintendo. Sega was busy killing itself. Companies rise and fall. Who is to say that we cannot get a new hardware company that makes new consoles? Also, if we want to lean into the more negative possible future, there is one aspect that I'm hoping it's not, but I wouldn't be surprised. With the prices of hardware so high, it could be very likely that the manufacturers lean a lot more into cloud gaming and cloud computing. You see, if you cannot cram, let's say, 32 gigs of DDR6 or 7 memory for the next generation of console, because that will... What if they put less and smaller memory and they lean part of the processing power to the cloud? let's say, part of what the game's rendering, it's done in the cloud, not on your system, not on the console. It doesn't need to be fully there. You could make it a hybrid. And that thought honestly scares me. That would be a sort of solution Xbox could try to implement. We can't afford a monstrous console, so we're just going to make a smaller console, and we're going to use the existing data centers we have, and instead of just pure cloud gaming like Game Pass, we could make it a hybrid. We could boost the performance by designing games that use the cloud to render part of what you're playing. That is a potential future, and there is some signs out there that that could be. Now, probably it's, unless that it's already the plan, and honestly, at this point, that would have leaked already if that was the idea. But don't think they haven't thought about it. Because once they take your games away from you, see, they're all licenses that they can take away at any point, all they have left to take away is the console. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. I'm just thinking like worst case scenario. That is a very dark possibility. So yeah, that's a brief look into the future, what it could be, potentially, the new generation of consoles. What is the future of gaming? Well, generally it looks pretty bleak, but we'll see. At least we're hopefully getting some pretty good games. Hopefully we can still afford where to play them. Either way, this is a lot of rambling about. Let me know in the comment section below, what is your predictions for the next generation? How much will the PS6 cost? Can Xbox actually make something good? I know at this moment it's not looking great, but I mean, it's still some ways away. I'm hopeful that they can. Let me know, what do you think? Would you be buying a new generation console? Are you fine the way you are? Are you going to PC? Forget consoles entirely. And as always, if you enjoy the video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.